I miss her so much.
The evening was quiet, except for Malachi's restless fussing. Jeremiah lifted him from the crib and paced the nursery, the baby's cries sharp against the stillness of the house. After a while, he carried Malachi into the living room. Abraham sat slouched on the couch, a glass resting in one hand, eyes fixed on the darkened television screen. Jeremiah stopped a few feet away. "Here," he said softly, easing Malachi forward. "You should hold him." Abraham didn't look at him. "I don't need to." "You're his father," Jeremiah pressed. He stepped closer, the baby squirming in his arms. "He needs you." Abraham's jaw tightened. He took a sip from his glass and finally turned his head. "You don't hear me?" I said no. Jeremiah let out a slow breath. "It's not his fault, Abraham. None of it. He didn't take her from you." Abraham looked at the child, then back to the empty screen. His knuckles tightened around the glass. "All I see when I look at him is what I lost." Jeremiah's voice softened, but he didn't back down. "He's what's left. That's not nothing." The silence stretched between them, heavy and unbroken. Malachi whimpered, then quieted again against Jeremiah's chest. Abraham turned away, sinking deeper into the couch, refusing to answer. Jeremiah stood there for a moment, the baby warm in his arms, before finally carrying him back down the hall. Jeremiah was up again in the middle of the night, Malachi wailing in his crib. He moved by memory through the dark house, warmed a bottle, and settled into rocker. The baby quieted as he drank, small hands clutching Jeremiah's shirt. Down the hall, a door slammed. Abraham appeared in the doorway. "Does he ever stop?" Abraham snapped. His voice was raw, frayed. I can't stand this." Jeremiah kept rocking, his voice steady, even as the words stung. "He's a baby." "This is what babies do." Abraham pressed a hand over his face, groaning. "Every sound, it's her. It's that night. I hear her in him, screaming." "You think I can forget that?" Jeremiah looked down at the child in his arms, then back up at Abraham. "You're not supposed to forget. But you can't put that weight on him." Abraham's hand dropped. He stared at Jeremiah, something like fury flickering in his eyes, but underneath it was only despair. "You don't understand. You didn't lose a wife." Jeremiah's chest tightened. "No," he admitted. "But I lost her too, and I promised her I'd take care of him. With or without you." The room went still. Malachi finished his bottle and sighed, drifting back to sleep. Abraham stood rooted to the spot, watching him disappear into the hallway, the echo of his words hanging heavy in the air. Morning light spilled across the kitchen, pale and thin. Jeremiah moved quietly, setting a bottle to warm while Malachi fussed in his arms. He hadn't yet dressed for the day. Only a black undershirt clung to his shoulders, his legs bare but for a pair of gray briefs. His body was lean but strong, the kind that came from steady work more than vanity. Abraham entered the kitchen and stopped short. His eyes lingered over Jeremiah before he could stop himself, the curve of his shoulders, the line of muscle in his thighs. For a fleeting second, something stirred beneath the fog of grief, something he refused to name. He looked away quickly, moving to the table. He dropped into a chair, slouched in yesterday's clothes, and wrapped his hands around a cold cup of coffee. Jeremiah didn't notice. He shifted the baby higher against his chest, rocking him gently while checking the bottle. Malachi's cries softened into small whimpers. "You need to eat," Jeremiah said quietly. Abraham said nothing. His gaze stayed fixed on the dark swirl of coffee but his thoughts were elsewhere, restless, sharp. Jeremiah sat down across from him, the baby nestled in his arm. He held the bottle steady, watching Malachi drink. "You can't keep shutting them out," he said, his voice low but firm. Abraham finally lifted his eyes. They lingered on Jeremiah's face, then flicked down again to the broad chest under the undershirt, before he forced them away. His jaw tightened. "You don't get it." "I get enough," Jeremiah replied evenly. "I get that he's here, and he needs us. That doesn't change just because you're angry." Abraham pushed back from the table, the chair legs scraping the floor. He left without another word, footsteps heavy on the stairs. Jeremiah stayed at the table, rocking Malachi until he finished the bottle. The baby's small body relaxed against him, warm and trusting. Later that morning, Jeremiah dressed for church. With Malachi swaddled in his arms, he paused at the foot of the stairs, listening. The house was silent, so we left without Abraham. The dryer rattled in the corner, a steady hum filling the silence of the laundry room. Jeremiah pulled a warm bundle of clothes from the drum and carried them to the small table where he'd laid out a pile of folded shirts. He liked the rhythm of it. Fold, smooth, stack, the simple order it brought to a house that otherwise felt swallowed by chaos. Malachi's tiny onesies, soft and impossibly small, always slowed him down. Rebecca had chosen them, holding them up against her belly with a grin. Jeremiah exhaled, pressing the fabric flat with careful fingers. He didn't let himself think about her too long. Not here. Not while her absence still clung to every wall. From the speaker on the counter, the faint crackle of vinyl filled the air. He'd found the old record player earlier while unpacking boxes, and without thinking, he set it spinning. The opening notes of Roberta Flack's "The Closer I Get to You" drifted through the room, gentle and aching. Now, as the music swelled, Abraham appeared in the doorway. His shirt was wrinkled, his steps loose, the faint scent of whiskey clinging to him like a second skin. His eyes lingered on Jeremiah for a beat before sliding to the folded laundry, then back again. Rebecca loved this song. Abraham's voice was rough, softer than usual. He stepped into the room, swaying slightly. "Dance with me." Jeremiah let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "I'm doing laundry. Forget the laundry." Abraham's smile was tired, almost pleading. He extended a hand. One dance. Jeremiah hesitated, glancing at the pile of clothes, at the warm socks still waiting to be folded. His pulse quickened, and he told himself it was nerves, the discomfort of entertaining a grieving man's whims. Still, when Abraham's hand lingered, Jeremiah felt his resistance crumble. "Just one," he muttered. He set the shirt down and allowed himself to be pulled forward. Abraham's grip was firm, warmer than Jeremiah expected. They moved awkwardly at first, Abraham's feet clumsy, Jeremiah stiff, but the music carried them. The closer they swayed, the more the air thickened. Abraham's hand slid to the small of Jeremiah's back, lingering there. Too close, too personal. Jeremiah's breath hitched, and every part of him screamed to step away. But his body betrayed him. His chest tightened, his pulse raced, and beneath the rhythm of the song, he felt the traitorous flutter of something he thought he had buried long ago. Abraham leaned in, his forehead almost touching Jeremiah's. His voice was barely a whisper, rough with drink and grief. "I miss her so much," he whispered. Jeremiah shut his eyes, his heart pounding. He wanted to push Abraham back, but instead, he stood there, caught in the gravity of Abraham's closeness, his own heartbeat answering in a language older than shame. When the song ended, silence filled the room again. Jeremiah stepped back quickly, grabbing the nearest folded shirt like a shield. "I should finish this," he muttered, his voice unsteady. Abraham didn't protest. He only watched him, eyes heavy with something Jeremiah couldn't bear to name. The morning after, the house felt different. Jeremiah moved quickly through the rooms, quiet but efficient, as if the faster he worked, the less chance there was for silence to settle in. He bathed Malachi, prepared bottles, cooked breakfast, and stepped lightly past Abraham's closed door. When they did cross paths, Jeremiah kept his eyes low, his voice brief. "Baby's fed, food's on the stove. I'll be back later." Nothing more. Abraham noticed. He sat at the kitchen table with a half-filled glass, his gaze following Jeremiah whenever he entered, searching for something in the set of his shoulders, in the curve of his jaw. The memory of last night clung to him, the warmth of Jeremiah's hand in his own, the closeness of his body, the way his chest had risen and fallen against him, in rhythm with the song. Abraham told himself it was the liquor, that the drink had blurred the line. But he remembered too clearly, too sharply. At night, when the house was quiet, the scene replayed against the dark, Jeremiah's hesitation, his refusal, the way his body had tensed but not pulled away. And Jeremiah, for his part, carried the weight in silence. When he prayed at night, rocking Malachi in the nursery, he asked forgiveness for things he hadn't done, but felt guilty for anyway, for the racing of his pulse, for the trembling in his hands when the song ended. The house held the tension like a wound that hadn't closed. Abraham drank more. Jeremiah worked harder. Malachi fussed and wailed, the only one unbothered by what neither man could name. The sound of hammers and saws broke through the usual hush of the house. Jeremiah's crew had returned, working steadily on the last of the renovations. The founder and co-owner of his construction company, Monica, was also there. Dust hung in the air, sunlight slanting across the half-finished walls. Monica stood in the doorway of the nursery, her arms folded, a bandana holding back her hair. She watched Jeremiah seated in the old wooden rocking chair, Malachi cradled against his chest. The chair creaked softly as he rocked, slow and steady, one large hand spread protectively across the baby's back. Malachi slipped on, cheek pressed into Jeremiah's shirt, breath warm and even. "You know you've been off site for weeks now," she said finally. Jeremiah didn't stop rocking. His gaze stayed fixed on Malachi's face, lashes resting against his cheeks. "I told you. I had to stay close." "Abraham can't," Monica cut him off with a small laugh. "Can't or won't?" She stepped inside, lowering her voice. "You're over here playing housewife while I'm running jobs with half the crew." The cheers slowed. Jeremiah adjusted Malachi slightly, careful not to wake him, then looked up. "This isn't a game, Monica. Rebecca's gone. He's a newborn. They need me." "They?" She arched an eyebrow, glancing at the baby curled against him. "That baby needs somebody, sure. But Abraham?" She shook her head. "That man sits on his hands and drinks while you're killing yourself." Jeremiah didn't answer. He resumed rocking, jaw tight, the motion more deliberate now, as if anchoring himself. Monica studied him a moment longer, then softened. "Look, I know what she meant to you. I know why you feel you gotta step up. But don't lose yourself in their mess. You got a business. You got people counting on you." From the hall came the slam of a door. Abraham's footsteps thudded down the stairs, pausing just long enough for his voice to cut sharp through the house. "Tell her she don't live here." The silence after was thick. Jeremiah looked down at Malachi sleeping soundly, Small fingers curled into his shirt, chest rising and falling without care for the storm around him. Monica's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That's what I thought." She turned and walked out. The slam of the front door still echoed through the house long after Monica was gone. Jeremiah sat at the kitchen table, Malachi against his shoulder, the baby's breathing steady and light. Upstairs, Abraham's footsteps paced across the floor, back and forth, heavy as stones. Every so often, he stopped, the silence pressing harder than the noise. Jeremiah adjusted the baby, humming under his breath to keep him calm. His mind drifted to Monica's words, the sharp edge in her voice. Playing housewife. She hadn't been cruel, just honest, but the truth stung all the same. He wanted to believe he was here only because of the promise, because Rebecca had asked. But the lines were blurring, between obligation and choice, between the house he worked on and the house he lived in. The floorboards creaked. Abraham came down at last. He didn't look at Jeremiah as he passed through the kitchen. He reached for the liquor on the counter, poured too much into a glass, and downed it in one swallow. Jeremiah said nothing. Malachi stirred, a soft whimper against his chest, and Jeremiah rocked him gently. "You tell her too much," Abraham muttered finally, his back still turned. Jeremiah frowned. "I didn't tell her anything that wasn't already plain to see." Abraham turned in, eyes sharp, the glass pledged tight in his hand. "She don't belong in this house. She don't know me." Jeremiah held his gaze, steady. "Maybe she doesn't, but she knows me. And she knows I'm breaking my back trying to keep this together." For a moment, Abraham looked ready to answer, to spit back the anger that sat heavy in his chest. Instead, he finished the drink, set the glass down hard, and walked out the back door without another word. Jeremiah exhaled slowly, pressing his cheek against the crown of Malachi's head. The child had settled again, oblivious to the storm swirling above him.